This will define everything when it comes to the future of the New York Islanders, as they have a huge decision coming up when it comes to top prospect Matthew Schaefer. We're going to discuss it on this episode of Islanders Digest and also talk about some updates on some other key Islanders prospects that I think are going to have a lot of fans excited. This is the most excited I've been about the Islanders prospect pool, or really the Islanders in general, in a very long time. And Schaefer is not the only reason why I am so optimistic about this team's future. And they have a big decision coming up when it comes to Schaefer. And before we get into that, we've noticed that 65% of you who watch these videos have not yet subscribed to the channel. So if you're an Islander fan, you want more Islanders content just like this, what are you waiting for? It's going to be a real fun offseason when it comes to looking at Islanders prospects and rumors around this team. Again, I think there's so much more enthusiasm when it comes to this fan base. There really has been in a long time. And a lot of people are wondering what's going to happen next with Matthew Schaefer, which is a big question the Islanders are going to have to answer. And I think a lot of fans are really hoping to see him in the NHL. We know that is what Schaefer wants. He's talked about it on the Spitting Chicklets podcast, as well as other things. I think that was a real good listen for Islander fans. I highly recommend it. Schaefer was really giving Biz a lot of trash talk. It was a lot of fun to listen to. Really see his personality seep out, and that's one of the things I love about Schaefer. This is not only a guy who's going to be the key to the Islanders' success in the future, he's also going to be a key personality, making this team likable for the fans. And coming out of the Lamoriello era, where we really haven't seen a single Islanders player in a podcast forever, it was really refreshing to get to know Schaefer a bit more, hear what he has to say about the Islanders and how excited he is. And one thing that really stood out when it comes to Schaefer talking, it makes sense, is he really wants to play in the NHL next season. And it's going to be really interesting to see what the Islanders do and what they really decide when it comes to Schaefer's future, because after watching him play at the prospect game, I think this is a really tough decision to make. There are certain elements in Schaefer's game that are just instantly going to transfer in the NHL so well. You just look at his speed. His speed is going to be one of the highest motors on the Islanders right away. It was really incredible watching him skate. But the question is everything going to be there? One thing he really talks about on Spitting Chicklets, while also making jokes about Paul Bissonnette, which I absolutely love. Butch Goring probably loved listening to this one, is he was talking about how he's going to try to bulk up, eat more, to really put on some muscle. But there's not a lot of time between now and the NHL season, and I'm sure Schaefer can pack on some serious weight before then. But in those 3 months, I really question whether or not he's going to be able to get his frame up to a size where you can really feel comfortable with him playing in the NHL game. For the record, Schaefer already has a pretty good frame coming out of the OHL. He's currently listed at 183 pounds, which is a little light considering he is 6'2", but he definitely has enough size to get away with his, especially considering his speed in the NHL. But my big question when it comes to Schaefer and the Islanders next season is more, would the Islanders be capping his ceiling if they let him play in the NHL right away? And this is something perhaps I'm not worried about, but something I'm really wondering when it comes to Schaefer, just because while he played so incredible last season in the OHL, I'm sure most Islander fans have watched the clips at this point, he only played 17 games. And to me, this is really eye-opening when it comes to Schaefer's potential. Looking at Schaefer play in the prospect game and just in his games in the OHL, it's clear that his transition game is NHL ready. He's going to be able to get that puck in the offensive zone and quickly either skate out with it or make outlet passes. He is ready for that part of the game. But one thing I do question is whether playing a full game in a lower level would allow Schaefer to develop more of his all-rounded, particularly offensive game. I think there's so much for him to learn, particularly on the power play, in the offensive zone. I think by having more time to dominate at a lower level, I think Schaefer can really watch his game hit another level. Because of that, I really think it might be the best decision for the Islanders to not have Schaefer make the lineup next season. I know some fans are not going to be happy about that. It's typical that a first overall pick plays in the NHL right away, but I think it's important for the Islanders to not rush Schaefer in any way, especially considering he only played 17 games last season. In addition to the World Junior games he played, I think it just makes sense for him to get more time to marinate at a lower level. And ideally, I think that that lower level is college. I think at this point, Schaefer's really shown not all he can at the junior level. Again, I've really talked about how I really want to see him learn how to control the offensive zone the same way he controls the neutral zone and his breakouts in the defensive zone. I think that'll be the difference between Schaefer becoming just one of the top defensemen in the becoming one of the better defensemen in the NHL and becoming one of the top defensemen in the NHL. The Cale Makars, the Quinn Hughes. I think Schaefer does have the ability to dominate the offensive zone, but I think a big part of dominating is learning how to dominate at lower levels. And because Schaefer just doesn't have the experience playing that many games, I think it makes sense to play, well, perhaps not in the OHL, but in college. The challenge here is going to be, in terms of college, he's going to have to make that decision relatively soon, which definitely complicates things. He had mentioned on the Spitting Chicklets podcast that he does expect to have a conversation with the Islanders on this soon, and I think it's going to be really interesting what the Islanders decide for Schaefer to do. I do understand Schaefer saying he's not thinking about college. Obviously, it makes sense. You want him to want to make the NHL. I just think that might be the best move for him long term, and what's really interesting about this is if Schaefer is going to play in college, then the Islanders can't sign him to an entry-level contract, which makes this really interesting because without an entry-level contract, Schaefer can't try out to make the team. He can't be playing in these preseason games. So this is going to be a really interesting situation for the Islanders to figure out when it comes to Matthew Schaefer. Realistically, if he's going to commit to college, he has to do that this August before he even gets the chance to try out for the Islanders. So that's going to be something we're going to have to keep an eye out. One thing to note, too, when it comes to the Islanders is there really aren't that many spots on defense. Obviously, if Schaefer shows that he can play in the NHL, he's going to force his way on this team. Schaefer getting NHL minutes is definitely going to take precedent over Adam Boqvist. Or really Scott Mayfield or any other player on this team. I truly believe the Islanders at this point, every move they make should be focused on what is best for Matthew Schaefer, because what is best for Matthew Schaefer is best for the Islanders. At this point, they are building this team around him. Yes, you have other core pieces, such as Barzal, such as Ilya Sorokin, but the focal piece is going to be Schaefer in the future, and you're going to have to really focus. And if Schaefer does show he is ready, and I do think this is a possibility, I think especially considering if he does put on the muscle, I really don't see that much holding him back at this point. I would prefer him to play in college, a lesser season against higher competition, at least than the OHL, where he can really learn to hone his skills while playing against bigger players before going into the NHL at the end of the season. That's a big thing I do want to mention. If Schaefer does play college, he can end the season in the NHL for the Islanders based on where his team ends off in terms of the NCAA playoffs. We've seen several players play college and then come in at the end of the year and play the last 10 games at the NHL. That's something that can definitely happen. Another possibility I do have to mention that I've kind of left out is if he does go to the OHL, he can have a 9-game tryout with the Islanders before they ultimately decide if he's ready. And I do think if the decision is to have Schaefer go to the OHL, I think it is better for him to go to college personally. But if he ends up going to the OHL, I think the best case scenario is he plays 9 games first and then goes to the OHL, having learned what he saw in the NHL and really using that to propel his development. I don't think there's necessarily a wrong decision for Schaefer. I just think it would be best for him to get more time at lower level. Let me know what you think in the comments, because I think there's definitely an argument where Schaefer is ready to play in the NHL, and I did not think that was the case until I watched him playing in that prospect scrimmage. I think that really opened my eyes into just how good of a skater he is. I knew he was a great skater, but watching him play against some of these really good prospects for the Islanders and watching him elevate his game, it was really interesting. Another thing you have to note when it comes to this Schaefer decision is he's going to be competing with Isaiah George, who I really think deserves a spot on the Islanders to start next season. And I think Isaiah George actually presents the perfect opportunity for Schaefer to have a proper try, assuming he doesn't go to the NCAA. If he can beat out George, I think it is fair he makes the lineup. But I think George should also get every chance he possibly can to make the Islanders. I'm really excited about George's future, especially after what we saw from him playing 33 games for the Islanders after so little games in the AHL. Keep in mind, he only played 2 games in the AHL before he moved up to the Islanders, before going back to the AHL to finish the season, and ignore that plus-minus when it comes to George. The Bridgeport Islanders were absolutely abysmal, and he was definitely the brightest spot on that team this year. And a final note when it comes to Islanders prospects, Cole Eiserman, Kamil Bendarek, Jacob Kavenka, and Sam Laura have all been invited to play for USA Hockey for the World Junior Showcase. I'm especially excited to see what Kamil Bendarek does at this showcase. He was a prospect. While I was super impressed with several players, he really polarized me when it came to the rookie game. On one hand, he looks like he really has the toolkit to be an NHL player, and that really excited me. But he made a lot of decisions that showed me he was lacking confidence, and I'm really hoping throughout this summer and through next season playing at Boston University, he can learn to play more confidently. I actually hope at this point they split him up with Cole Yzerman, because I really feel like him playing with such a shooter in Yzerman, he just constantly defaults to trying to pass the puck at all times. And I would love to see him play with more confidence, because the skill was very evident at the prospect game. So many times he had an opportunity to shoot at the net and he'd be looking for a pass. And I think part of that is definitely playing with a talent like Cole Yzerman. So I'm definitely excited to see this World Junior Summer Showcase. It's going to be exciting to see, especially considering we have 4 Islanders playing on just Team USA. It should be a lot of fun. And finally, I thought I would note that William Dufour has signed a 1-year deal in the KHL. Notably, he was one of the Islanders' better prospects back when the pool was absolutely abysmal. Some people felt like it was a failure on the Islanders' part that William Dufour did not progress. Personally, I just don't think it was ever going to happen for Dufour, and now he's going to play in the KHL. The Avalanche did not tender him a qualifying offer, and clearly no other team was interested in giving him an opportunity, even at the AHL level, or perhaps he just felt like the KHL was the best move. I wish William Dufour the best. It was really exciting when he did get his 1-game try on the Islanders, even if he only did play 1 shift. I just don't think the skating speed was there, and this just exemplifies how good of a trade that was for the Islanders to land Callum Ritchie in exchange for Brock Nelson and William Dufour. Let me know in the comments what you think about Schaefer. Where do you think he can play? Where do you think he should play next season? This is going to be a really intriguing decision to watch the Islanders make during the offseason. As always, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. My name is Patrick Nilan. Catch you on the next episode of Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders!